Nate, did they ever catch that city administrator that drives around?
3 hours we were out there. Yes.
Haven't heard.
It's
It's a pretty heated conversation we had there. I've got a meeting in Canton tomorrow, so I'll be stop afterwards.
What do you think happened? They just washed off?
It has to be. Things like, I mean, until Keegan started driving every day, I didn't think that road.
Keegan started driving, how's that going?
Good, very good.
Yes.
Apparently there is a social hierarchy for parking spots at the school. I didn't know.
It was
It's like if you go the first, I don't think, yeah, the first day is an important day, and that's when you claim
You
your
claim
spot.
your spot.
So he asked me what happens if he parks somewhere else. Oh, you can't do that.
It was a source
But
of
what happens?
angst in our house the first day of school. It was like,
So-
I gotta get there early to
Ours
get
too,
my
like,
spot.
They had to go like an hour early.
He went, like the 3 days right before school came back into session, he would go drive down there and pick out his spot and practice parking in that specific
Yep,
spot.
that happened to us too.
Park wherever you want, as long as it's an actual reserved spot, I don't care.
Right.
What do you have him driving?
The one car, usually. He had to go all the way to the orthodox on his own last week and went well.
That's just what it is today.
Okay, that's not how we, I mean,
They didn't have the other stuff, didn't you? The December stuff?
yeah, but I think I pulled it different. This will work.
Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining us tonight. Are there any additions to the agenda this evening?
No changes.
I'll look for a motion to approve the agenda.
Second?
Motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. On to item 2, the public hearings, community development block grant. And I'll open up this for a public hearing. It's at 7:01 p.m. Hi there.
Well, my name is Harley Ferguson, and we're for the Southeastern Council of Governments, so for those of you who don't know me. So the city of Lennox is submitting an application for funding to help finance the East Oriole Avenue improvements project. The total cost of the project is approximately 1.9 million. The city of Lennox is submitting an application to the Governor's Office of Economic Development, GOED, for grant funding through the Community Development Block Grant. The requested funding would be around $840,000. These funds are provided as a grant, and then there's no requirement for paying those back. The CDBG program works to ensure that decent, affordable housing is to provide services to the most vulnerable in the community, and to create jobs through the expansion and retention of businesses. CDBG is an important tool for helping local governments tackle serious challenges facing their communities. The city of Lennox meets one of the criteria for eligibility, and that is that the low to moderate income in Lennox is 52.3% of its residents are determined low income. What that means is that if the wards are granted to Lennox, that 51.25% of low moderate income will benefit from the project. Community Development Block Grant funding also requires the opportunity for citizens of the community to engage and participate in planning, implementation of CDBG funded activities in their community. We know that East Oriole Avenue improvements is one of the priorities, but however, you are encouraged to identify other priorities in your community. And this is, a moment to kind of, again, provide public comment for any other projects that the community might have. There are a couple of community development, housing needs, and then low moderate income projects as well that I kind of listed here. So for community development and housing needs for low to moderate income persons, and this is based off of your comprehensive plan. So whatever, I just pulled what was in the comprehensive plan. So to encourage new residential and commercial growth within the existing city, discourage scattered residential and commercial and industrial development, focus on future residential development in the low density and single family housing, partner with economic development corporations to improve housing development. So maybe a housing study if you guys haven't done that yet. Prepare public infrastructure for future expansion of the community. Participate in the pre-disaster mitigation plans process to identify possible activities to mitigate the loss of life and property in the event of a disaster. Encourage recreational opportunities for all residents and visitors. Maintain the appearance of Lennox's neighborhood, streets, and commercial districts. And then for planned and potential activities, you're applying for the East Oriole Avenue, and then applying for maybe certain eligible funding through South Dakota Housing Development Authority. They do have some grant opportunities there too as well. The city of Lennox will be partnering with the Economic Development Corporation. Will work to discuss future developments for like a housing needs study update. It is also worth noting that the city of Lennox has made significant strides in improving its local infrastructure, particularly in areas supporting education, housing and education. Recent upgrades to enhance the utilities along Boynton Avenue and the completion of Central Basin Phase 4, and then highlighting the city's ongoing commitment to growth and development.
Thank you. Any questions, comments from council?
Have we ever utilized your services before?
CCOG?
Yeah.
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 All the time.
Yes.
CCOG administers our SRF loans
Yep.
or grants and everything, so.
And the CDBG program, if you do get awarded the funding, GOED pays us admin to administer everything, all the paperwork and stuff. So they don't have to. He's off the hook with this one if you get it. So.
When's the timeline for approval?
This one is, we submit the application April 1, and then June, I believe, is when you would hear something back.
Okay.
June, July.
It's the Economic Development Commission that approves.
Yeah.
reminder for council, we also have a $600,000 community access grant that was approved by state of South Dakota earlier this year in addition to this grant application.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any public input on this matter? Okay, seeing that there is none, I would entertain a motion to approve Community Development Block Grant Resolution 2025-01-2702.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. And motion carries. Okay, we now declare that the public hearing is closed, 7:07 PM. Thank you. On to 3, visitors to be heard. If we have people from the community wish to come up to the podium and share up to 2 minutes, and if there's something that they want to talk about pertaining to the agenda, we could just wait till that time. But any other public comments or visitors to be heard this evening?
I'm Landon Poppins, own the property at 216 North Cedar. I understand this is just visitors here, so there'll be no discussion on these concerns that I'm bringing up to you tonight. I just found out about the proposed buffer zone, I think you guys are calling it, between Elm and Juniper. Just got an email on it, didn't know anything much about it, and then I read the paper today, and $623,000 for a buffer zone that goes 2 blocks to nowhere, right alongside railroad tracks. To me, that's hard for me to wrap my mind around how you could spend $623,000 on sounds like it's gonna be a sidewalk going nowhere on Court Avenue, the south half of Court Avenue, which is 33 feet between Elm and Juniper. I didn't request this buffer zone. I know none of the other adjoining landowners requested this buffer zone. And I'm pretty sure no other taxpayers in town requested it for $623,000. I can't believe why we'd even be considering doing that, to be honest with you. I know there's no other buffer zones like that along the railroad tracks in town, so I don't know why this 2-block section here is so important that we need to spend that kind of money on. I know this property's been tried to be vacated in the past, and the city decided they wanted to keep it. I've maintained it for a lot of years. Last year you guys did mow it, I think I got it documented, I think it was 3 times after I complained. So I do appreciate you guys making an effort to mow it, but otherwise it's always been in disrepair, and I've been the one that maintained it, which I'm fine with that, because it's next to my property, and I want my property to look good. It's dedicated Court Avenue. Nate explained it to me at one time, it can't be sold. The only way you guys can get rid of it would be to vacate it to adjoining landowners, which would be on both sides, so it'd be the railroad and adjoining landowners on the north side. So I don't know how, it's dedicated for a road. It's that way at Lincoln County Courthouse, it's that way on GSI. So how can we make it not a road and turn it into this buffer zone? I'm kind of curious about that. The other 2 things, I guess, are snow removal. Court Avenue butts up right to Juniper and Cedar, it just dead ends right there. So the snow is pushed from the north to the south, and it's piled up on that 33-foot section of Court Avenue that the city's closed. We put a buffer zone or this sidewalk, whatever it's, I haven't seen the plans, whatever it's gonna be, but for $623,000, it better be made of gold. But we're gonna have nowhere to go for our snow. And then also there's a ton of traffic that comes down, especially Cedar. And I got cameras at my shop, you guys are more than welcome to look at them. I bet there's 10 to 15 cars a day that come down there and turn around. And right now there's a gravel area at the end of Cedar, which is gravel on courts for people to turn around, otherwise they're turning around on my property. And I don't want that. Furthermore, I don't want this sidewalk right next to my commercial property and the adjoining landowners and all the residential. There and be their kitchen windows going to be a public sidewalk now that goes nowhere right next to railroad tracks. That cost us $623,000. don't understand that aspect at all, so in closing, I hope the next time this is on the agenda, I can be heard and you guys can answer these questions and tell me why we're gonna spend $623,000 for a stretch of sidewalk that goes nowhere. I don't see who's gonna benefit from it other than Stockwell Engineering's gonna have another nice project from the city of Lennox. That's about the only ones that I see benefiting from it, so. Appreciate your time.
I just want to make two comments here.
Yep.
So first of all, I really appreciate you bringing this forward and your concerns. As always, we appreciate when people come forward and get involved in local government. I just want to address the funding piece and then also my primary goal for that area. My concern is the drainage. And that is one thing that was brought up in our last meeting with our city engineer was the
So-
drainage in that property. And then also the second thing, for funding, we are looking into grant funding because it is an expensive project. So we're
I think we
hoping
can
that
utilize the
Safe
grants.
Pathways to School program will work for us.
We've got lots of places with no sidewalks. We just took over Winsome, and there's no sidewalks on that street. So I guess the Safe Pathways to School has nothing to do with this. Right next to the railroad tracks, 2 blocks on the dead end. And as far as drainage, I would have thought, we just had a big street project on North Elm. I would have thought if there would have been drainage issues that need to be addressed, I would have thought that would have been incorporated into that project, but obviously it wasn't. They put a storm drain in there along Elm, which helped a bunch. But otherwise, there's utilities on Cedar, there's utilities on Juniper. It's all relatively new, it's not old stuff. Everything seems to work fine, so to me, grant or not, and as far as safe passageways to the schools, I don't even want to get in on that. Like I said, we got Winsome right by the school, and we don't even have sidewalks on those streets. And the city of Lennox took that street over. So we don't need a sidewalk along the railroad tracks. It's not gonna be safe. They're gonna exit the street and walk across the railroad tracks. That makes 0 sense to me. Hopefully, when next time we talk, one way or another, we will. You guys can answer those questions. Appreciate your time.
I think it's also worth noting that there is a new street in on that project too.
That's news to me.
On Juniper. Yeah, I've got the picture right here if you'd like to.
Oh, on Juniper getting redone, yes, that I'm aware of, but there was nothing drawn up for this project in with Juniper, at least the last time I talked to them.
So,
Is
Just
there,
to-
is
just
there
to
anything
note.
drawn up on Juniper as of right now?
Yeah.
For this project right here?
for the, yeah. I can show it to you.
Yeah, that'd be great, I'd appreciate that, 'cause we're kinda always in the blind here, we don't usually get to, you guys make all the decisions and.
This is all public and part of the packet from our meeting 2 weeks ago with the drawing, the
Yeah,
document.
no, I'd love to see that, that'd be great, thank you
It's
very
all
much for bringing that
available
up.
online, and
I appreciate
glad Billy
that.
will share that.
Thank you.
Yeah, you bet.
You bet.
It helps you get straight what's actually happening.
Yeah, oh yeah, definitely, I'll get her straight, thank you.
Any other visitors to be heard this evening? All right. Seeing that there's none, we'll move to the consent agenda. Nate, anything you want to draw attention to on here this evening?
A few items, number of agreements on there, Century Business Products, Tech, and ClearStar. So Century is, our lease is currently up on the printer we have, so that'll go over to ambulance, the new one will stay here. Tech is just updating our agreement there, so we're constantly at the level where we're just about going over our hours, or where the hours that we use would go over the cost of this agreement. ClearStar just adding another service to our background checks that are approved. 2 positions here, administrative and media assistant, so accepting a resignation in advertising there, and then accepting a resignation of an EMT.
Can you clarify, Nick, for ClearStar, is that something that we're moving forward just for one individual role, or is that something we're looking at for all things?
The only position that applies to right now is the finance officer. That was added to the job description before we advertised in the fall.
Any other comments, questions from council?
Kyle, you mentioned some of the struggles with the freezing cold temperatures that we had with this inordinately cold.
I can speak on that a bit.
Yeah, I'd like to be educated a little bit more on what the struggles were and what the actions are we can do to try and help.
Well, I'm still exploring that, so I don't have a lot
Yeah.
for you tonight, but just know that, we're taking it and we're exploring as many options as we can, but essentially that Arctic blast that we received last week kind of really knocked out the ammonia removal of our wastewater treatment plant. Essentially you have a nitrophine bacteria in there that pretty much feeds on ammonia.
they're very temperature sensitive bacteria, and what happens is if you get below, like let's say 50 degrees, they kind of go, they start to slow down. And that's all integrated into our compliance permit with the state, because they see the struggles with colder climate. But when you get below 40 degrees, they pretty much are non-existent, so that's kind of where we're at right now. And building that mass back up, and then to start, actively treating that ammonia, is not, doesn't happen overnight. It's a very slow, controlled process. So we're kind of exploring ways, because we kind of fight this every winter, but it happens sooner this year than previous years that I've been here. Typically, in the February, we kind of get a little colder, and then our compliance limit starts to get a little bit more strict come March. And I'm just nervous this year, in 25, that we're already kind of at that point where I thought we would be come end of February. And I don't know what the weather's gonna be like for this remaining of February, so it's stressful. But there's things that we've done to try to mitigate this issue. One is we're essentially, during the period between about midnight and 5 o'clock, the wastewater from the main lift station, there's just such low flow here where it's about 45 minutes span before any warm water actually goes into the facility. So what I did was I lowered the level, so instead of that flow, or that pump starting here, it now starts here. So it just runs a little bit more frequently, and the idea is to kind of get water to enter the facility more often. Doing that makes the pumps kind of work harder, so I don't want to run it like that for very long. But I did talk with our rep for that specific pump, and he thinks the start and stop times for that is acceptable, so I'm not too concerned. I'm also working with Stockwell, some ideas, covers are always an option, a boiler, a heat exchanger, something just to keep that water warm. I know we do have the proposed connection coming up in 3 years, but that's 3 years away. And I'm just worried that right now, this being an ongoing issue each year until we get that increased flow, I think we'll be continuing to fight this.
And if it's a part of the improvements that we're looking at with the DOC water and that volume, I think it's worth exploring a quicker timeline to get that, at least a solution that's viable in place.
Yeah, there's a few facilities similar. I know the one in Somerset has an SBR just like ours, and they ended up putting essentially a greenhouse over it. I would like to take the opportunity to go there and just see, what improvements, how that helped them. Our plant is designed for, it's like this is 670,000 gallons. We're at 20% of that. We just don't have the incoming flow to keep that temperature up. So I did communicate that with the state in a recent email 2 weeks ago. I have yet to hear back. I just got a confirmation that they received it, they're looking at it. But essentially is I requested a possible interim permit until we reach an amount of flow that's coming in. So maybe our compliance limits will be less stringent based on our low flows until we reach, let's say, like half capacity or 300,000 or something like that. They're exploring the idea, so they weren't against it. I think it's an opportunity we should try and explore.
Yeah.
But we're spending a lot of money.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah. Will there be any relief with the forecast this week being tepid?
Yeah, but like I said, it's a slow process. I mean, they won't be active tomorrow. Let's just say that. It could be a month, and in 2 weeks we could get sub-zero again, and then we're back where we are now.
One of the things we were looking at, I noticed yesterday the National Weather Service put out their frost depth charts for the winter. And compared to most years, our frost is far deeper at this point than it usually would be. We don't have anything insulating the ground, and all this stuff is subgrade. All that water is subgrade. So what would typically be helping insulate it may actually be hurting it now, just because there's no snow covering to insulate the ground. So it's just a couple of punches all rolled into one.
Well, thanks for managing it tightly and
doing the best I can. You got, man.
That's right. Appreciate it.
Anything else for me going here?
Thank you, Tom.
Yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely.
Any other discussion involved into the consent agenda this evening? Now, I'll look for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
One more thing, library side, your Libby usage continues to skyrocket by the looks of the graph that you put together. Do we have any capacity issues when it comes to Libby, or are there a certain amount that we're bound to? Are we gonna run into an issue with that, or is that not anything I need to concern myself with?
No, we don't have, our contract with Libby is strictly an annual fee, and that annual fee then supplies books that a committee goes out and purchases throughout the year for everybody that's within that consortium to be able to grab at. So, no, the only thing would be like when the really popular books come out, if we need to, get a couple extra copies because of wait lists or whatever and stuff, but we are also watching that because there could be some possible changes with that with the upcoming legislation proposals with the budget cuts and stuff, so hopefully that doesn't, because right now the contract is that the state library helps manage that contract, and with only 2 staff with the potential cuts, there could be some changes in that, but it should still not have any interruptions with Libby, so we should
No.
still be good.
Then we have the other issues with the budgets being proposed cut. And I appreciate you setting up a booth at the library for folks to get information and figure out how to express themselves about how viable and valuable our local library is. And I'd encourage anyone who enjoys our library, or even has a child or anyone that has ever used the library, to express yourself and state how important this is for our community, and how the funding that we currently enjoy from the state is necessary, and certainly doesn't put us in any position of egregious spending. It just allows us to offer the programs that we offer and have the services that we offer. So
Yes.
I encourage anyone to reach out. Please write a letter and express to our representatives your desire to keep our funding for our local libraries.
I think too, it's really interesting to me when I first learned about Libby. I was an avid Audible user and paid the monthly fee, which is very expensive, and so I very much appreciate that service.
There's quite a buzz about Libby. People in town talk about it.
I just had a gentleman come up last Thursday, and I assisted him with getting it downloaded onto his tablet so that he can do Libby. So,
Very
Yeah.
cool.
so, and we are headed to Pier on Tuesday in Forces, because that's when the next hearing is, so
Good. Good deal.
hopefully we'll be heard.
All right. Thank you, Audrey.
Just stay up there a moment if you could, please. Got an email this morning about an award that wasn't given, but I think it's worthwhile to note. We don't know who, but somebody nominated Audra for the American Library Association's I Love My Librarian Award, which sounds awesome. So with 1,300 nominations, only 10 around the country are chosen, but Audra was one of the nominated librarians.
Awesome.
I'll just read from the nomination here. The library has improved so much with Audra. She is so creative with different events for young, old, and families. She's willing to help you find a book, and even goes so far as ordering the new book. She goes out of her way to deliver books to the elderly or those who can't make it to the library. Summer reading program is very successful, and she makes it even more fun with all the wonderful prizes. Since Audra started working at the library, she's better organized the books, cleaned out the really old books, and just made the library a wonderful and fun place to visit. Audra has a smile on her face and welcomes everyone who enters the library doors. She puts a warm smile in your heart.
That's awesome. Congratulations.
Yeah, go for it.
No response. All right, any other discussion? Okay, we'll do roll call for the consent agenda. Mauer.
Aye.
Swear.
Aye.
Doherty.
Aye.
Andrell.
Aye.
Walsh.
Aye.
All right, consent agenda is approved. There's no items under old business, and so now we're on to 6 new business. We have preliminary plan, Lot 7A Stakes Edition. Mitch, you wanna get this one going?
I can,
Sounds
usually
good.
the developer would be here to kick it off.
Okay.
But yeah, I can kind of review a little bit of what our part in this is, I guess. So what we're looking at here is a preliminary plan for Grove Edition, which is, where Winsong ends. The developer proposing to add a cul-de-sac at the end of that roadway and develop 3 additional lots there. I'm sure everybody's kind of familiar with the site. If you all had a copy of the document, I can kind of go through it page by page with you a little bit. Again, maybe I'll start just by talking about the process a little bit. This is kind of the first step of several steps that the developer goes through to be able to develop sites. Last one we had was probably for Countryside Edition, which is obviously a bigger subdivision, but they went through the same process here to be able to start that project. But your subdivision regs is what governs that. And those subdivision regs requires them to submit this plan for review. So we review it, staff reviews it. We come up with comments and they address the comments. Then it goes to planning and zoning. They review it and they did that at their last meeting. They've recommended approval to you guys after that. And now it's on to you to review and make a recommendation to adopt or deny. And then from there, they will go into more engineering. So what this document doesn't include is all the drainage calcs that they'll be doing after this. We kind of stagger that with the subdivision regs, so they don't put a lot of engineering effort into the document just to have the board say no to it. So if everybody's agreeable to the presentation and the layouts, then they will move forward with additional engineering after this. And then that will be reviewed by our office and staff again. And we'll be reviewing it against your standards. So the front cover has the signatories there that will execute if it's approved. And then if you go on to B01, there's some notes just pertaining to the subdivision. And these are statements that we ask them to put on here, so it's just clear what some of the expectations are. So you can see the first note there, they're not anticipating any deviations from you guys' standards. They're not anticipating any reimbursements for oversizing facilities or anything like that. They've got some notes on intentions for maintenance improvements. It's pretty typical that the city would take over the streets and the water mains and the sewer mains that they construct. They basically give them to the city for long-term maintenance. Also detention ponds, it's pretty common that you guys would take those over. They don't have any wetlands that they've noted here. There's no floodplain on this site. We have a note on intentions for open space contributions. In your regulations, you do have requirements for a developer to set aside land or to make payment towards the park system. And because this is a small enough area, there's not enough room for a park. There's an adjacent park next to it, so we would suggest that they be required to make payment towards the park system, which is, I think it's $1,000 an acre by your regulation. Some special notes, some on lighting, nothing special. Let's see. And then just some more verbiage on how they're gonna approach their drainage. And we can elaborate more on that as we go through the plan. B02 is just some typical sections, what the street section will look like. No surprises there. C01 is their existing site, what's out there now. So you can see where Winsong dead ends at that location, and they have purchased this tract, or lot 7A of Stakes Edition, is what they're looking to develop. There's a couple of outbuildings on the property. My understanding is the one kind of towards the south and centered on that lot 7A is staying. And the one kind of in the southeast corner is going to be demolished. Page D01 is how they propose to lay out the lots. So you're seeing the 3 lots, lots 1, 2, and 3. Some easements that are on those lots that are proposed. And E01 is the existing drainage plan. So you can see, this is probably what we're going to be focused on most when we do get those engineering documents is the drainage, because you can see there is some ponding that naturally occurs on that property now. And so I've had several conversations with their engineers already, how are looking to approach the drainage. And one option is to, if they're approaching a school district, to maybe widen out that facility to the north to create more storage. That's one option. They're also talking to the landowner to the east, as I understand, to do a low-lying area or a pond on that property so that it mimics kind of what it's doing today. I think that's probably the best option they have. They have another option of trying to do a detention pond on lot 3. I don't think that's gonna be as feasible, and we've kind of talked about that with them already. So they're really pursuing the option with the landowner to the east. They might try to do something in the school, but we're kind of learning that the school's facility even is a little bit undersized. From what I understand, when that fills and a big enough rain, I think Jack can probably speak to it better than I can, but there's just a concern there that your property there is low against that detention facility. So they don't want to have to exacerbate that problem. So I know that they're aware how concerning that area is, so they are doing their due diligence. We've had, like I said, several meetings with them, and they seem to be doing a good job of trying to navigate that. They kind of approach it as if they can't get something worked out with the landlord in the east or the school district, and they might not be able to do this project, so we'll see what happens there.
That's a pretty massive elevation change to get it to flow to the east into a retaining pond that direction.
Yeah, I think it's challenging. I think if they do some sort of pond where it's gonna be, it's not gonna have an outlet, just like this water that sits here doesn't have an outlet. It'd be more like a French drain to it. It would absorb into the ground eventually and dissipate. Someday when we do Elm Street, we would bring a storm sewer system to bring an outlet to something like that, but we don't have plans to do that in the near future. So they're looking at, I think for the time being, that is probably their best option, is to cooperate with the landowner to the east and try to mimic kind of what's happening here already. Just to get through the rest of it, E02 shows a proposed drainage plan, and again, this doesn't show the option to the east, but that kind of has come up in our recent discussions since they submitted this. But you can see the option of trying to work with the school's facility to the north, the possibility of doing something to the south, but I think the reality is trying to do something to the east is going to be the best option.
Why not to the south?
The south, again, I think there's not an outlet, again, there for, it would have to be another zero outlet pond that would French drain in there, and anytime to me, if you move it that far away, you just, even though you could probably do all the engineering in the world and show that it works, the second something bad happens or someone's negatively impacted, it's not gonna matter what the drainage calcs say. So they don't wanna get the client into that position either. They wanna try to get their client in a position where, not only does the drainage calcs support it, but it's also, it appears like common sense.
If the school approves the use of their detention facility and expansion, what is our responsibility with it being on their property if we feel like the capacity is too low?
So if the city really wouldn't have anything to do with that. It's not a facility that we maintain. It is a privately maintained facility. And they're not proposing, that's probably still a question I have to answer with them, is any detention pond that they develop with their intentions are for maintaining those. But as far as the school is concerned, it's a privately maintained facility, and so it would just be between them. And we always require the developer to get those permissions, even if he's gonna work with the property owner in the east, that's all on them to get the permission that they need to be able to do their project.
Concerns, I guess, with wear and tear on Windsong and just using that street for heavy equipment, I mean, that's the only, route in and out of that space.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of, to me, it's like any other street, you know, if we're even up in countryside, they're using the streets to be able to build their, buildings up there. It definitely will get some wear and tear. Probably be good to just video it before they start and look at it afterwards and make sure there's no significant damage, no big blowouts or something like that.
It shows a dirt trail on the south side. Would that be useful to know?
I've been back there before, there's just a little, I mean, it's just kind of overgrown back there, and it looks like there's an old path there that went to those sheds. I don't know what their plan is for that, I think we'll probably leave it intact is my guess.
If it's 0.1 acres, that would be some decent green space dedication to close off that access, but
Oh,
I don't know that there's a formal plan at this point.
yeah. Yeah, neither doesn't seem to be.
So I see that this proposal has sidewalks on it, so that's nice, but I don't see approaches, so I'm just curious, obviously they don't have building plans because they don't have this approved yet, but is there enough space on each of those proposed lots to insert an approach, or will these people be parking in the cul-de-sac? Just curious if you've had that conversation with the developer.
So the cul-de-sac, the size and radius of it meets your standard, so it's the same size as probably most of the cul-de-sacs in town.
So like Sunset over here by my house, would it be comparable to that, or is it?
Probably larger,
This
Yeah,
one would
yeah.
be larger?
Yeah,
Okay.
Sunset I don't think meets.
some of those ones that have been around might be undersized a
Yeah.
little bit.
Okay.
But if you go up into the countryside again, they're probably very similar to that size. So that's your minimum standard. What is different here is that the sidewalks are proposed curbside. Usually they would have a boulevard between their side.
Like a 1 foot setback
Yep,
according to our
and-
design standards.
And they did request that because we do anticipate the sidewalks, if they're ever put in on Winsong Place, to be curbside. We didn't think we were okay with them proposing the curbside sidewalk, just knowing that would likely be curbside too. I didn't see any real issue with that unless this group does. But as far as approaches, I think it's wide, they're plenty wide to be able to fit an approach. It's always hard to kind of park in cul-de-sacs. Depends on how they arrange the driveways. If they, put a couple driveways kind of towards the same end of each lot, then they might gain a little bit of space in there, but it's kind of always the challenge in a cul-de-sac.
I guess I was also curious with lot 3, obviously there is current access to Elm. Would they be able to maintain that, or would we request that they?
I would love to see that access go away. But at this point, our only method to do so is to ask nicely, so.
But if we approve this, can we ask that that be a requirement, since that lot would then have access from the cul-de-sac?
Yeah, I can sure ask them if they'd be willing to close that as part of this, if they would agree to that. I haven't had that conversation, let's see that.
I agree with Lauren, though, I think that's an issue that's gonna come up in the future, that's gonna be frequently used by that property owner.
It's a strange lot.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah,
For lot 3, is there going to be a proposed, home possibly built on the north side of that? It doesn't seem to separate it out from, the rest of the city-owned area, or at least I imagine it must be city-owned, because it looks like the courts are there, is that correct? As well
No,
as.
this is all north of that. So
None of this is city owned.
This is all private currently.
So this would be north of like where the campground is.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, I mean, as far as lot 3 is concerned, it's my understanding they're gonna propose a house facing the cul-de-sac with access off the cul-de-sac. What they do with the rest of it, and I would intend that there's an issue with weeds or things like that, you'd have nuisance standards that.
Correct.
Go back to.
We've talked a little bit about maintaining the backside of that property a little bit better than it has been in the past. We have had some discussions, just initial discussions on, what the owner might want to put back there. And so we've been very clear about what our zoning standards require, in terms of use and conditional use permits and all that kind of stuff, so.
Okay. Any other questions for Mitch on this?
Just to finish up, the utilities are shown here as well. It's pretty straightforward, they're just plant and connect to the sanitary sewer, and extend it into the bulk of the cul-de-sac, same with the water main, there'll be a hydrant at the end of that. And then they'll service all the services off the mains.
So would the hydrant move from where it is today?
They don't show it, but they could, I mean.
Does have reset hydrant to proposed location.
Right.
Does it say it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
right on the
it's
property line
figure
between
F1.
2 and 3 on the cul-de-sac.
Yeah, that would make sense. We like to have them at the end of the lines, just so that we can flush the entire line. That's part of why we do that.
I know there's some concern with the fire department, without this cul-de-sac, just with the fire hydrant where it's at, and that they don't have clearance to actually make a U-turn. Will this fix that?
Yeah.
The cul-de-sac?
A cul-de-sac brings any dead-end road into compliance for the fire codes that are out there. Because it does give them space to turn around as they need to. That's why we try to discourage dead-end roads, or try to get, if we can't do a cul-de-sac, we might try to do they call it a hammerhead, where it looks like more of a T shape, so that they can get some turning movements in there. But essentially, the reason why cul-de-sac bulbs are required is for that reason, so that emergency vehicles can have space to turn around.
Mitch, what did you say the reasoning for not following the design standards for the sidewalks were? I mean, it's supposed to be set back 1 foot from the curb, correct? According to our
1
design
foot from the property line.
from the property line.
And so, if you see, I'm looking at, it's supposed to be G01.
Yep.
And you can see that Winsong, the right of way that's there is 56 foot wide.
Okay.
Our minimum standard is 66, so we're already a little narrow there. So if you try to put a sidewalk in that area someday, there's only gonna be a couple feet between the edge of the sidewalk and the back of the curb, so you have a strip of grass that is only a couple feet, and that's really hard to maintain. So likely, that sidewalk, when it happens someday, will likely be curbside, unless the property owners are willing to give up more property, but it's so tight through here that we wouldn't ask that. So we anticipate the sidewalk to be curbside throughout, and so when it comes to this bulb, we thought it could continue curbside. That really didn't.
I just wanted to make sure we had good justification so that if
Yep.
somebody else comes in and tries to develop land and just wants more property, that they're like, well, we did this here, but,
Right.
you know.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think to help compensate that too, they are proposing a 6 foot sidewalk around there, rather than your minimum standard is 5, the 6 foot will just help. If cars are parking along there with their doors open, they don't swing into the sidewalk as much, but.
Sure.
Any other questions for Mitch or discussion? Otherwise, I'll look for a motion to approve the preliminary plan for the Lot 7A Stakes Edition.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
I'll
Abstain.
abstain.
Motion carries.
I'm just counting, sorry.
Yeah, because if Sam's on, we still have majority.
Yeah.
All right, on to B, wastewater treatment facility improvements.
Okay,
tonight you have a work order in your packet from us to begin work on wastewater plant upgrades for the Department of Corrections facility. So we can walk through that a little bit. If you go into where the scope of basic service starts, you can see we've broken it into phases. Where we have phase 1 being a survey. We're gonna have our guys out there doing a topographic survey of that entire site. So we can bring that into our design of when it comes to the drying beds and the equalization tanks that we've been talking about and all the improvements associated. From there, we'll go into a schematic design. And that will simply be laying out things at kind of a high level, looking at setbacks, making sure that we're planning enough room for some of these new facilities. Part of that will be coordinating on some environmental aspects with the DANR and SHPO and a lot of those regulatory authorities that have some jurisdiction. From there, we'll go into phase 3, design development, which is once we kind of have things laid out and city staff has had a look at it and we're kind of on the same page, then we'll go into a more detailed design where our engineers back at the office will crunch the numbers and size the pumps or size whatever facilities they have, and then they'll start laying out plans for it. Phase 4 is the construction documents. Those are the final plans that get developed for the contractors to bid off of. And so that'll have all the information they need to give you guys pricing when they come to bid it. And that is part of phase 5 is the bidding process, so we will be there to help administer that. We'll post plans on our website. We've got a list of all the likely contractors that would be interested in this. We'll make sure they're all notified. We'll answer questions for them. We'll help make updates to the plans if it's necessary during that time. And then from there, we'll bring that to you folks when we open bids for you guys to hopefully award a contract to the low bidder. Okay. From there, then we'll go into, we've included pre-construction, which is pre-construction meetings, shop drawing reviews, submittals, things of that sort, all that stuff that's at the front end of the construction project. There's a lot of coordination with probably private utility companies that'll happen in there too, and that'll actually happen throughout, but that'll be something that those private utility companies will be invited to that meeting. And then we go into construction and overseeing, doing an observation of the construction with the contractor. So we're there again, doing staking, doing site inspections, making sure things, as your guys' eyes out there, that things are getting built to the plan. And then we have a closeout process. Once everything's built, we do final inspections. We review final payment, very similar to what we're doing right now with Central Basin Phase 4. We're going through closeout processes there. And then we get ready for making sure that we're documenting things for that warranty, because that warranty period of those facilities start kind of at that point too.
And it's just to, I guess just for public interest, I just want to have it be said, I guess, that Stockwell Engineers has had quite a bit of experience with wastewater treatment facilities,
Yeah.
Harrisburg, Hartford, Bell Rapids, Hartford. I just wanted to kind of get that out there, that it's not something new for Stockwell Engineers, and we very much are experts in
Yeah.
that facility as well.
Yeah, and we've been involved with your facility, so we're in tune with exactly how it works and how it operates. And you heard Kyle, we're helping on a regular basis over there, so there isn't anybody more familiar with that facility. We do have in our office, we have environmental engineers with a master's degree that have been doing this in their entire career.
At what point do we connect with the DOC and understand their plans of exactly where they're gonna come in at and make sure that
Yep.
we're coordinated?
So I've already had some conversations with them, because they are reaching out, asking where they can bring their line in and whatnot. So we do need to get kind of these first initial layouts started so that we can get them the direction that they need. But that's already kind of started.
Can we dictate, based on our plans, how we want it to
Yep.
come in? Okay.
Are you talking about into the wastewater treatment plant or into the city?
Into the equalization tank that's gonna mix with our main.
Yep.
Sure, that one.
And that'll be something we're coordinating with Kyle, to make sure that he's happy with how that is gonna happen. But yeah, we have, and they'll do what we want there.
They've asked about what kind of connection type we want,
Yep.
and all that jazz.
Yep, I've got a great working relationship with those engineers, so, it'll go.
Now, a question I think that might come up with the community too, and I don't wanna get off topic at all, so I'll stay on topic, but, just with the talk of the Department of Corrections and people trying to push pause on that, regardless if that happens or doesn't happen, the city of Lennox, we need to do an upgrade anyways. The DOC connection kinda just, one, it funds it, but then also it just helps us, or it also like kinda speeds this process up, which is beneficial because the cost of building an anion only increases every year, correct?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we've been talking the last 5 years of the challenges that we've had, not only with the temperature, and we've been talking about covers and these things, but the equalization, I mean, kind of, during a wet year, we're in desperate need of that equalization. Just to be able to have a place to store that extra water, so we can meter it through the plant. And, dry year is not so bad, when it's wet, it is miserable out there.
Yeah, and I think where some of the confusion comes is like when Kyle was just up here and he was talking about how our plant has the capacity to treat so much, but then we're talking about it needing an upgrade. The upgrade isn't so that we can treat more, we can already treat a certain amount. The upgrade is, like Mitch just said, to, in those abnormal years or those abnormal flows, we have the capacity to store. We can still treat just as much as we need to. It's the storing that we have the issue with today.
Right.
Yep, and there's, you gotta remember that plant has so many different components too, that even the smallest component sometimes has to be upsized or doubled, just so it can meet the capacity that the tank is designed for. Right, when we say the capacity, it's really the structure of it is what it's designed for. There's all sorts of components that are meant to be upgraded as you go.
Thank you.
Any other questions or discussion?
I'll make a motion to approve the work order for the wastewater treatment facility improvements.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the work order. Do we need to do a roll call on this?
No.
Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, motion carries. Thank you. And then on to C, we have Central Basin 4 project change order, pay application 17.
Yep, so with Central Basin Phase 4, we're kind of in that closeout phase that I was kind of discussing. Where we're at right now is we're not ready to close this project out quite yet. We still have some seeding to finish up this spring. It's about the last of what we had, the contractor is out there. They just weren't able to get everything seeded this last fall because it got late enough. So as soon as the weather turns, they'll be out there seeding that, and then we'll be ready to close out. We have been working with them getting all the final numbers, and so that's kind of what you're seeing here, is this is where we expect the final contract value to be. When we work with the state, we always try to do what we call a final change order, which basically zeroes out everything and balances all the quantities to what was actually built. And so that's what we're accomplishing here. We did, with this change order, I did include a letter that came today. I don't know if everybody's got that. I wanted to just go through the funding a little bit because it can be a little deceiving seeing the change and we're going up in price for the construction, but I want you to see the big picture of where we are with the budget and where we are with the funding package that we're staying within in that minute. But the funding is the top table. You can see the loans and the grants that the city was awarded for this project. Total is $10.2 million. And you can see what we laid out for ourselves early on before this project started, the budget that budget is what made up the request for the funding, if you will. And so you can see we had budgeted $8.5 million construction. We didn't have any wetlands or land acquisition that we were worried about. We had our engineering fees, we had geotechnical engineering and testing and some legal fees in there. And on the right, you can kind of see we've adjusted those as the contract values have kind of reached their actual limits. So you can see we're really getting, thinking that we're going to be more at this 9.7 million, and I think we'll even be a little less than that when it's all said and done. Because we do anticipate, our engineering fees would But just to discuss the change order, we broke it out into 2 items. First item is a subgrade stabilization. This was really a result of that horseshoe area of Rummel Drive and Elm. It was just nasty up there. The dirt was wet, we had to over excavate. It looked like it was an old slough, which I'm sure probably was. Probably hunt ducks there one time. And it was the spring of the year, so it's harder to build roads in the spring. So we thought it was prudent to spend some more money on extra material underneath the roadway just so we could bridge that and stabilize the roadway and have a good road. So that's that item, the $87,000. And then the second item is the $46,000 of as-built adjustments. You can see that summarized in the last table. I think it's Exhibit A, you call it, Attachment A. And this is, we underrun some things, we overrun some other things. And so this is just a balancing act to be able to balance those items out. And you have me and my staff out there helping making these decisions along the way. There's reasons why we probably spent more money on vehicle tracking control, and we didn't have to spend any money on temporary boardwalks. It's just, we don't always know those intricacies when we go into a project, but we like to have the unit prices there, so if we need them, they're there, and we don't have to fight about the price with the contractor.
Mitch, on that project budget versus the contracted amount, the construction costs include the tie-in for Burlington Northern as well? And all the work?
I can't remember. I don't think it does, now that I think about that.
That was another 150.
Yeah. There's probably, what he's getting at is there's another $150,000 probably missing from this project budget under the contracted side. So we're probably, that 9.7 is probably, call it
9.9.
Yeah, 9.9.
Okay, any other questions, discussion from council?
Are we feeling good about warranties that have been brought to light?
Yes. As far as warranty goes, I'm not anticipating any issues there. We get the payout, we are withholding some money still, because we do have a possible claim against the project from one of the neighbors, and they had some, I'm not sure if everybody's familiar with what the ongoings are, but there was some property damage that happened that needs to get resolved, and so we're withholding those funds from them until they are resolved.
As long as our citizens are protected,
Yeah.
and we're not just walking away from that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll have a warranty inspection this spring, I assume, maybe early summer, where we'll note items. And then we'll come back again the following spring for final inspection and warranty repairs.
As far as the work that the city paid for, I don't know of any major warranty issues in there. I mean, everything looked really good at our final inspection.
Cracked sidewalks, normal stuff.
Okay, any other discussion, questions? Otherwise, I'll look for a motion to authorize mayor to sign change order number 4.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, motion carries. Thank you, Mitch.
And then I guess we had the pay app too.
I'll make a motion to approve pay application 17.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve pay application 17. Do roll call for that. Nate?
No.
Or not, is it okay? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, thanks.
Thanks, Mitch.
On to item D, resolution 2025-01-2701, speed limits.
Mayor and council, this was the result of the direction given to staff at the last meeting. After discussion, we recommend the following map of speed limits be adopted. So orange on that map equals 25 miles an hour and red was 15. This map preserves existing 15-mile-per-hour school zones as well as the slower speed limit from 1st to 3rd to account for that center street parking. To make the changes, we do need to remove several signs and place new signs. Cost of that's estimated at less than 1,500 right now. We can probably reuse posts throughout town, but I think the plan, and Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, is to place 25-mile-an-hour signs at every street entering Lennox from the highways. So that anybody coming into town will see that first 25-mile-an-hour sign, and everywhere else it just reverts to state statute.
And it will be 15-mile-per-hour signs when it goes down to 15.
Correct. It'll probably take some time to make this happen, I don't know how much of that we can expect in the winter with route frozen if we have to put new posts in, but.
One of the things I had brought up is just inconsistency of speed limits throughout Lennox. And the only thing I see on this here, which I appreciate, I'm assuming Will and Mark put a lot of time into this too, so I appreciate that effort. But on Main Street, we go 15 for 2 blocks because of the center parking, and then it goes to 25 for 2 blocks, and then it goes to 15 again for 2 blocks. And that sounds inconsistent to me. So I wonder if I'd like to have discussion on that, thoughts.
That is a good point, especially because, in the summer during ball games, I'm on the wrong end of the street, I'm sorry.
Yeah, we're looking from 3rd to just shy of 5th.
Yeah.
So it's residential there,
Yeah.
right?
Yep. With the exception of the museum, but.
So you're thinking why reduce it to 25 to say 10 seconds? Not
Right,
even
for 2 blocks.
Right,
Yeah,
just keep it consistently 15.
I think so. Because then you would need to put speed limit signs up there for 25, remove it to 15.
A block
Or
later,
not.
15.
We would, yes.
I mean, it would
Need to
be
post it.
confusing.
Nate, isn't there an ordinance that needs to be considered here? I can't quote it, but, reducing to 15 miles per hour. From what I remember, that's kind of the reason why it reduces to 15 on First before you get to Main Street. And I just wanna make sure that we're following that ordinance appropriately. I
Yeah.
did not look it up, I apologize, but
Well, I believe it was a resolution, that's why we passed a new one. Let me just go back and make sure that we don't have something minuscule in our ordinances to make sure that we're okay there, but if there is a change required there, we'll make sure we change that language and have it at the next meeting.
The other piece is, and maybe this is because I have a teen driver, but 25 seems a little fast to me in some areas. I was looking for consistency. I absolutely agree with that. However, moving up to 25 in all areas, I think of some of these, like for example, the T-ball field, where you've got kids on bikes going over across the street there. The pathways to school, and Elm can become a racetrack regardless. Some of the cul-de-sac areas. If any drivers are like my teen driver, the speed limit's not a limit, it's more a goal. Like, I gotta get up to 25 now that it says 25. I want to trust, and I do trust our police force in making this decision. However, I think too, as soon as you increase the speed limit, what's gonna happen in 5 years, 7 years, or is it gonna be 30 everywhere? I
This
would
is
like
the
to
state-
see it more.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, I would like to see, the consistency to me would be more 20 throughout, except for Brighton, it's a little wider, it's been updated. That's kind of where I was going with the speed limit changes. That's what I was kind of hoping to see, is getting rid of the 15 reduction, but not necessarily increasing it throughout town to 25. I think that's a little fast for residential areas.
And I started to say this earlier incorrectly, but I feel like along the park there by the baseball diamonds, especially in the summer, it should be slower. It's so hard with those angled parking on the west side, and then there's always people parked on the east side during games. I don't drive any faster than 15 through there in the summers. It's just too dangerous.
And kids dart across to get the
Oh,
foul balls.
Yep.
I agree with Main Street, being 15 throughout, I think that's
There is ordinance language on some of this. Ironically, we're in violation of one of them right now. 703.E says 15 in city parks. I think it's 10 right now, if I remember right. And then, except as provided above, 25 and through and 20 on sides, but it doesn't define either of those. 15 for school zones.
I would be in favor of 15 from First all the way south to to where we have it proposed to the school. You get traffic from the ball field and park, you get kids walking to the pool, you get a restaurant, DG, we've got, you know, Chuck's right there. There's just, to me, that looks like that, you just make that run from First
All the way to
south
Main,
to
all the way to
44.
All the way to the high school.
15, consistent, easy, nice flow.
You said from First, correct?
Correct. So extending, filling that gap between 3rd and 5th.
Yep.
And then continuing south of Park Drive all the way to 44.
Yep, and then passed as we have it proposed.
Correct.
Now, 25 throughout the community, I would disagree with Alderman Mauer. Yes, common sense has to play a role, and it isn't that common, I understand that. But falling in line with state statutes is really one of the things our officers were excited about, was that we were gonna be in line with what the state requires in our community and not making it a mumbo jumbo. People get confused when they're not from here. What are you supposed to drive? All South Dakota roads are 25 in the community, but they're 20 here? You know, if you don't see the sign, you're gonna do 25.
Can you remind me what the state regulations say? Is it 20?
15 for school zone, 25 for residential.
And is that a guideline or what is that?
Cities can go outside of that if they wish, but unless otherwise designated, it's 25.
I have teenage drivers too, so I get where you're coming from. It's a goal to get to that speed limit or beyond some days. But I do think that, and it would be interesting, I think I support moving forward with what we talked about here, but I would encourage, you know, even further recommendation from our police department if we need to do additional yield signs in some residential spots, especially if there are blind spots in some areas or streets that are just more straight through. So that would be something I'd be more open to, adding some yield signs. And also encouraging the PD to be more stickler on the 25 then too, because there have been a lot of warnings that they have given, which warning versus citations. So maybe this would be just to help people learn that, you know, this 25 is the speed limit.
Mayor makes a good point. Is there, because I know there's some areas of town that are currently yields that maybe should be stops because of blind spots. Could that be a next step in this process to kind of look at some of those and have our streets department help with some of those? Because I know one on Second that's a yield that I don't feel like that should be a yield. And even my street, I know it's a yield, but again, it seems more natural to come to a full stop at the end of Academy. So I just want for clarification on the map that's provided in the memo, West 8th Street, I know it is a dead end with a cul-de-sac, but that's not highlighted. And then
Yes,
Meadow Circle as well, and the meadows over there. I just want to clarify that that's included in this.
Yeah. Okay. I think we need to go back and update the map anyway.
Yep.
And make sure that we include any ordinance changes if they're necessary. I don't know that we need to change anything in there, other than the fact that it'll reference a 20 somewhere, so.
So just to clarify, Nate, we are not required or obligated to meet the state's guidelines, right? It's more of this is a recommendation.
It's a default.
Okay, a default, but we can go outside of those bounds.
Correct.
I'm just gonna say that I disagree with going to 25. I think that, I want our streets to be safer, and I don't see a need to get anywhere faster. I don't think we need to be 25. I think we have a lot of areas where we're maybe missing sidewalks, where we've got kids riding bikes or walking on the street. I'm just gonna respectfully disagree. I think it should stay 20 consistently, and then 15 in areas where there's, like on Main Street and through Park. You know, I think of that turn by the T-ball field. That's not technically, you're not driving through a park, so that's gonna be 25. That's really fast there with you've got kids riding bikes, there's no sidewalks.
There isn't.
I'm concerned.
You're talking on like on the west side of town?
It's West 7th, yeah.
Okay.
West
Yeah.
7th and
That concerns me, that unless we're obligated to meet state requirements, I just don't see, what is the positive here? What are we trying to accomplish?
We're just trying to be consistent, so to give
With
everyone,
who?
all of our visitors that come to town, every other town is 25, so
Are they though?
pretty much.
How do you know that? I'm just asking for the data, like, what, do we know it's 25? I wanna know for sure, I didn't do that research.
It's just, I've been driving in other towns for 30 years, and that's kind of the norm.
It's
I guess,
25.
Yeah.
I haven't paid close attention to know that it's 25.
If there's no sign on the street indicating speed, it's 25.
Correct, which is the state standard, right?
And I think what we identified at the last meeting is there's a lot of our streets that don't have signs, so people are probably already driving 25, especially, like, I think of North Elm, I drive that every day, and there's no sign there, so I would guess, and PD said, you know, we have to think when we're pulling people over, is there a posted sign? If not, then they follow the 25 mile an hour.
So I think for me, I wanna know what our goal is on council. Is it to be consistent with other towns so that people aren't confused when they drive here? Or is it to promote safety in our community? Because we have the ability to choose what we want it set at. And I just don't see a need
I think
to
the
go
original
higher.
was consistency.
Consistency in town was the concern, where it goes from 15 to 20, that's what the mayor brought forward.
Eliminate confusion, so everyone just knows what the speed limit is. and can-
So 20 consistent would do that throughout town.
Well, I did say, the reason I had brought it up originally tonight was consistency in town, but also consistency in other towns. Because I drive in a lot of towns and it's 25 in every residential,
I must have missed that in your memos.
so.
I'm sure there are towns where there is some deviation from 25 or 15 or 20. We didn't put that research together either. Yeah, that's not anything that I have available.
We don't have to decide this today either. I'm not a big fan of always kicking things down the road all the time, and sometimes we just make a decision, but we could, you know, I don't know if there's something that would bring a change to decision on council members, you know, either way. But we could table it too if we need to, or get more opinion from PD, that's fine as well, so.
I would agree with Brittany on the Boynton Avenue. I feel like that one is currently, what is it, 20?
It's marked 20.
That one I feel like definitely needs to be increased. I can go either way on the residential streets, but I do think it needs to be consistent whatever we decide. And if we decide to do 20, then the streets department still needs to go out and put up more signs to make sure it's posted 20.
Right.
And then the question becomes how frequently do you post it? Because you could be entering the street from any point.
Yeah,
So I don't know what the
I
standard.
guess I'm even open-minded, but my point of view is let's be consistent with every other town or most other towns, and maybe challenge it to like drive 25, and I don't think that's an unsafe speed in most streets. Like, I agree, like, coming around the T-ball field, but that's part of driving. You don't just go the speed limit in every situation. You gotta drive cautiously when
Well,
there's obstacles. So.
Yeah, and that's one of those areas that I would encourage us to critically look at for a potential stop from one way or the other, because it's a pain point.
Yeah, it is.
So I think we do need to make some tweaks into that. Maybe it is even is a recommendation, you know, since it's almost, I mean, a lot of times baseball fields are tied to parks too, so we could always do 15 over there by the T-ball field or at stop signs. You know, recommendations on additional yield signs, so we could add more information to this if we
Yeah,
wanted
I'd be
to.
open to maybe adding 15 by the T-ball field. I mean, we're adding 15 by the
Right,
main
baseball.
field,
Right.
so I think
Then you
maybe,
might
maybe
as
there's
well.
a stretch there we'll do 15.
Like from Winsong down to Park Drive.
Yeah.
You just clean that up and make it
Right.
15 too.
So you don't have to get to the school before you hit 15, you start slowing down.
What was that last one, Billy?
Winsong down to Park Drive.
I would be willing to task the streets committee with PD to kind of clean this up a little bit, take some of this discussion and come with a different recommendation.
Let me get text message from Will, who's unfortunately under the weather tonight. They are working on a list of controlled intersections and a few other signage suggestions, so they're keeping kind of tabs on intersections that are a bit of a, some trouble for them.
Is this something we can just table, or refer to a committee for recommendation?
Motion to table.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to table speed limits, resolution 2025-01-2701. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, motion's tabled. On to E, Finance Director.
Mayor and Council, we've gone through our hiring and interview process. I'd recommend a motion to hire Tyson Dollar as Finance Director at $70,000 a year pending completion of the background check. The final step of that still has not come back, so.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second to hire Tyson Dollar as the Finance Director. Any further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Abstain.
And the motion carries. I would like to just comment on Jen and all the extra work that you've been putting in.
Boy, no kidding.
Yes.
In this interim, and even when Tyson coming on, so I know you put a lot of time and effort into this, so we really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And your heart, because you don't take it lightly, and we really appreciate that.
I appreciate it, thank you.
Thank you.
I'll look for a motion to entertain a motion for executive session for the sole purpose of personnel.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. And now declares an executive session at 8:18.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, you did. You know me. I wear my heart on my sleeve. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
You have a great night.
Thanks. You
Yeah,
too.
good, yeah. Thanks, guys. Right on.
Thanks, guys.
Take care.
Like Warren was saying, I think that might help.
Help with that, yeah.
If you guys